It is a miserable day here in rainy, cold, and wet Fairfax, Virginia. So it's a perfect day to go see Nazi Zombies with J.J. Abrams, which we're going to do tonight, some of us. Anyway, how do I sound?
They say they can see and hear you.
Awesome. So, hey, welcome to another update, and yeah, it is just awful out. You know, one of those not good fall days where it's just so cold and wet and dreary. It's nice that we're inside. Of course, at the same time, our property manager came by going, hey, are you folks having problems with brownouts? Yeah, because after all, we don't use much electricity. So God knows if we're going to make it through this update today or even the rest of the day. But as long as we're here, and we are all still here, we will go ahead with it. So, hey, I'm glad to be back. Sorry about last week. Reasons, I explained why on the forum. No need to go into it here. So, top 10-ish. Number one, testing. So, probably very little chance of having a test this weekend. We have been, as we've been saying for weeks, bringing in a bunch of big things, which I'm going to cover in the rest of the top 10-ish. But right now, build is not in good shape. We hope it will be back in good shape. Possibly we'll figure out what's going on before the end of the day on the West Coast, but most likely it'll be early next week. So sorry about that, but you know, this is what we do. And again, lots of big things. You'll like what you're going to hear. So number two, work in progress, Rubble. So Andrew and Colin have been working to integrate Andrew's code and Colin's code to get the building server performant enough, to get the building and destruction system performant enough to handle the demands of all you lovely people when we get back to testing with, buildings actually being destroyed. Number three, another work in progress, abilities. So Rob and Caleb have been going the extra mile. Now, is that accurate? Extra mile? I mean, really, the amount of time we're spending on this, these guys have run a marathon, and then they're about to run another marathon. It's been a lot of work, just as we thought it would be, but the good news is we are getting closer to Ben actually being able to do what he needs to do in terms of building out the new classes, as well as, of course, all the new abilities. Work in progress number four, readied weapons. So as part of the equipment and skill system, Christina completed the first draft of readied weapons, and we still have some more work to do, not surprisingly, on the UI. One of those things that we're going to be saying, I don't know, forever, because it's a UI, and I've yet to see a UI in any MMO that isn't tweaked, changed, pushed, pulled, and sometimes blown up over the course of a game's lifetime. Number five, work in progress, particle system. So, during Beta 1, one of the things that we've seen, thanks to you all and us all as well, has been in the large-scale battles, the particle system, as expected, hurts performance. We've been working on that. Andrew had done some initial work on it, handed it off to Wiley, and like the good coyote of his name, it's been a howling success. Isn't that awful? I just made that up. That's lovely. I love that. Anyway, Wild E. Coyote. Come on, if you guys aren't down with the old animation, gosh. Number six, another work in progress. Weapon particle system. So Mike planned out how we want to better support VFX on weapons based on improvements to the ability system. This will allow him to author less unique work and let the improvements Wiley will be tackling do most of the grunt work. Which is good, because you want a guy like Mike who's only responsible for one of the most over-the-top VFX in the history of MMOs to be the guy who gets more time to figure out how to bring modern systems to their knees. Number seven, work in progress, coherent plus 64-bit. Yes, as of this writing, and it says it right there, George was mere hours away from completing our client conversion. Yay. Okay? Like, yay. Big yay. Yanking out coherent and yanking out Ceph and putting in coherent has been, a total pain. We thought it might be a little easier. It wasn't. It's not really coherent's fault. It's just been a lot to do. The good news is, once it's done, the 64-bit client is already done, or will be, compiled or will be built at the same time. And that's a big deal. So you're not going to be waiting, oh God, they took so long on coherent, how long is it going to take for the 64-bit? Well, in theory, it's happening at the exact same time.
Much excitement in chat about that.
Yeah, so that's really good. I mean, I told you guys 2 weeks ago that we were making progress on it. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but as of now, we are looking really good. And again, that's a big win because we really did not want to have to do these things. Okay, we get coherent in. Now we start on the conversion. George has been working on that along with the work that Matt has been doing in JB on the coherence thing. Number 8, art, characters 2.0. Better looking and more performant characters. You don't hear that all that often in most games, including us. But no, with the 2.0, we've got improved armor, which is still updated armor, which is still a work in progress, and the male and female human UVs. So yeah, that's moving along really nicely, and all good. Number 9, art animation 2.0. So updated the style and timing support. So what does that really mean? I mean, it means that we can, as we've been promising, continuing to improve the animation system, not only for existing animations, but animations going forward. I made some promises over the last couple years, especially to a guy who waylaid me at Dragon Con a couple years ago, that things were going to get better, and obviously they are, and they're going to get even better, and I guarantee you they'll get even better, hopefully sooner rather than later. Number 10, another work in progress, UI in specific to crafting. So I don't know if you guys have seen the art yet for it. Hopefully you have. It looks pretty good. I think it looks quite excellent, as a matter of fact, especially for still an initial pass. And AJ has been hooking that up. And look, it's going to be, while you don't want to say it'll be perfect, because there's no such thing, it should be a great first pass at a real UI for the crafting system. Number 11, tools. We don't give tools enough credit. Yes, tools need all the credit they can get because they're tools. No, sorry. No, we always do. We try to call out Bull and have in the past, as well as maybe someone else. And speaking of that, we'll have a hiring update next week. Thought I'd sneak that in there. This week we actually did a lot of work to improve our development tools with lots of bug fixes and editor support for the work that Caleb and Rob have been doing on skill building. Number 12, design classes. Ben has wrapped his first pass on the Devout, so another class bites the dust. I say that because I just actually last week saw the Queen movie Bohemian Rhapsody. Definitely worth seeing, not fully accurate, but pretty good film overall. Number 13 and final for the top 10ish, updated UI elements. So Mr. Koo handed off an update to the in-game HUD for the scenario scoreboard for AJ to implement, while Michelle is adding in more details to the health bars to show the class archetypes. So a whole bunch of stuff going in, a whole bunch of stuff went in, and Explosion probably incoming as Andrew's code and the ability code and the 64-bit conversion and coherent all really hit at the same time. So much shenanigans, I am sure, will be involved when we try to test that all. So that's it. I'm going to try to keep it down to 20 or 30 minutes today. I got some other things I need to get back and work on. So let's go.
First of all, Aidane says, all good stuff today, thank you. There's been a lot of reaction to your dad jokes and references as well.
Yes. Dad jokes. I've been making these same kind of jokes since I was a kid. The New York, Bronx jokes. How's that? I was a bigger wise ass when I was younger than I am now, and that's maybe hard to believe.
That's a little scary.
Well, it was so bad that my freshman year, the first week, I'm up at University of Rochester, and there's a hockey player on my floor right next to me. First night, we're hanging out, and I was being me, and by the end of the evening, apparently, and I played hockey as well, but he didn't know that at the time. This guy who did tower over me, and I was still a pretty big guy, apparently wanted to beat the shit out of me. Because I was being too much of a wise ass. So, yes, this is a toned down Mark Jacobs from what I was like at that age. Luckily, James and I worked it out without fighting.
Odelvik asks, just now the lands of CU seem very green and pleasant. When will we start to see signs of previous Vale corruption?
Depending on how things go over the next couple months, I think before the end of the winter, certainly.
Kaladex asks, with so many different damage types, and with air, including combinations of more than 2 elements causing a reaction, are you thinking of scaling down the air system to get the game out faster?
Nope. The nice thing about air is that if it, and we hope it is being engineered correctly, and it should be, it's not like our guys aren't smart. Once the core system is in, throwing in different elements and having them interact is not as big of a deal as it sounds. The core system, that's the bear. Everything else after that's a bit easier.
Darrow10 asks, will the cubes to build buildings always be perfect cubes, or will they get a look not so cubey?
That's something we can definitely be talking about down the road. I don't know what our current plans are in terms of that. It's something we have talked about. We just haven't talked about it in a while, so I don't want to say anything that could be, wrong.
Bumble asks, what kind of UI updates and new features can we expect once Coherent is fully implemented?
Well, the big one obviously is the crafting UI. That is a huge change from what we have now. We'll be making other changes that we haven't had time for, or frankly the memory for, to the game. And the 64-bit client is not a minor change, as we've talked about for quite a while now. It's a really big deal. It frees up all the memory of the machine for us to mess with. So I'm sure nothing bad will ever come from that. So I know that various engineers here have ideas, about what they can do with that extra memory. So expect to see a lot of changes. They'll come in. They won't all happen at the same time. One of the big changes we're hoping to have is that certainly it should eliminate the majority of what remaining memory crashes we have. We're having too many right now, which is one of the reasons we're not doing a test, but that's because we have essentially Coherent and Ceph running at the same time on clients that were barely able not to have memory crashes before we had 2 entirely separate UIs running. So once we get rid of that, once we go to 64-bit, our expectation is that the memory crashes, which we've, until recently, of course, when we started running them together, which we had under control and down to a very good number, we'll go back to that number or, frankly, way below that.
George is jumping in chat and saying, we should also get some neat under-the-hood capabilities we didn't have before out of the new system. Animated UI elements are now a possibility, for example. And we gain the ability to put in-game models and renders directly into the UI.
And that. And more.
Hamble Pants asks, how much work would it take to get a bare-bones, player-usable version of armor dies in-game? And how likely is it we'll see this before the NDA lift?
I saw that topic on the forums too. I don't know. It is something that we haven't talked about, and it's really a matter of timing. If the NDA lift, I wouldn't want to hold up the NDA lift for dies, but we'll see.
Odilvik asks, what gameplay feature of any other game out there do you wish you'd invented and implemented in CU as a unique thing?
Oh, damn. Good question. Oh, I love that. Which feature could I steal from all the people who've stolen from me over the decades? I'll think about that, try to keep it in the back of my mind, and I'll interrupt when I have an answer, because that's a question that deserves a fair amount of thought. Because it's a really good question. Thank you, Vic.
Maybe we'll swing back to it at the end.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
The man with no screen name asks. Oh, that was a joke question.
Gosh, who knew?
How is the progress on the pandas going? Okay.
Skadoosh.
Strike JK asks, do you plan mobile applications for CU, not like Diablo Immortal, but a method to use the Vox on your phone? Chat, server status, general progression checks.
Yeah, who knew that, diehard PC fans of Blizzard's would be upset with a mobile announcement at BlizzCon. That was unfortunate. So yeah, we certainly do want to have a mobile component. We do not, we haven't really changed at all regarding the things we've said in terms of actually having one. We haven't done any work on it, as you can imagine. But yeah, we do want to have a mobile component. We think it can be useful for store owners, for example. You crafters. It could be also useful for combatants, as long as it's not in a total hand-holdy way, because that would go against the stuff we've said from the beginning. So yes, the short answer, yes, and yes again.
Medic asks, when will Saturday night sieges start?
Soon as sieges start. This is all part of Rubble. Barney Rubble, sorry, I can't make that joke again. All Rubble aside, you really can't have a siege, a true siege, the way we want it to, without the building destruction code. So as soon as that is in and working nicely, that will be the opening of Saturday night sieges.
Jaffel VR asks, will there be, or are you working on, multiplayer cube so guilds can create buildings together?
So you can actually do that already in terms of inside CU. You do have permissions. I don't know the state of them off the top of my head, but that's part of it. As far as a separate multiplayer cube app program, we've said yes to that. That is something we want to do. Whether we'll have it in any time, not this year certainly, but in the near future maybe. It depends. We have hiring recs out, and if we got the right person to head up speeding up of Cube, whether it's as a separate program as we've talked about, or just as the building component to CEU, that depends on hiring.
Hamble Pants asks, is there a place we can see a list of features that are confirmed for launch, ones that are planned but uncertain to be in at launch, and ones that are for sure post-launch?
Absolutely not. Mainly because that doesn't even exist here in terms of having one document with everything. At some point, yes, we will have that, but not yet.
Svarti asks, are crossbows a thing? What about magimechanical weaponry?
So, no, yet, maybe, which is a terrible answer, I'm sorry. In terms of, magic mechanical, absolutely. We're not looking to, turn this into Hal's Moving Castle, which was awesome, but not something like that. But we do know that we need some magic mechanical to pull off some of the ideas in my head. So expect some of it, but again, don't expect us going, full hell.
AI Sense asks, you said particles were affecting the performance a lot, even if they are quite basic at the moment. Can we expect to have better particles in the future, or not too much because of how it already affects the game?
Well, and that's actually what we're working on. Right now, the particle system is very powerful, and you can do an awful lot with it and get yourself in a lot of trouble. And the thing is, for a lot of the particle effects, you don't need that kind of power. So we're working on having just that. So, and that's something I've talked about in the past that we would like to do with our particle system. So we have different paths for the guys like Mike to go down.
Lodween remembers something you mentioned in the past. Can you compare any real-life experiences with how we might defend bridges in game?
I'm trying to remember that being brought up in the past. Okay. Yeah, I mean, certainly defending a bridge is an important part of the game, because if you don't have bridge defense, it means moats aren't a thing, and if moats aren't a thing, then water isn't a thing, and if water isn't a thing, dry time's ahead. So, look, if you look at a bridge over a moat or, obviously a decent-sized river, you would defend it as you would any place where, you really want to just be able to punt the guys, knock the guys, trip the guys even, down, so in the case of water, that they hopefully drown. So if you think of, defending a bridge, in very obvious ways, that's what we're going for, because obvious sometimes is the best way to do things.
Drooged asks, a few weeks ago, you updated on the forums that you were working on something important for expanding crafting in testing. Any further news on that effort?
No, it's moving along fine. Nothing particularly insightful to report yet.
Odelvik asks, will we be able to fill the gap of a double-walled structure so when the outer wall is punctured, rubble floods out to patch the hole?
Yeah, the question is going to be how long are we going to let the rubble stick around, and that's certainly something that we need to know and need to figure out, and that's something that's part of what Andrew is working on, or will be part of what Andrew is working on. In theory, yes, of course. Whether that will be there in first pass, I would assume not, but we'll see. Andrew's Andrew. We were chatting this morning about, rubble, and, he mentioned he hadn't had a chance to look, or hadn't even known of a certain technique that impacted what he was doing, so he wrote his own. And so he was just totally, Andrew about this, and said, yeah, and I found out that by doing it this way, I got, twice the level of performance that I would have gotten if I used what was the state of the art in terms of papers out there. And that was pretty cool, but once again, Andrew. So that's why he is, who he is.
Hamblepants asks, what are CSE's goals of lifting the NDA before open beta/launch? Asking because it can expose CSE to criticism.
Oh my God, yeah. So two things really. One, so we don't have to give refunds anymore for new people unless we don't ship the game. That's an absolutely major goal for lifting the NDA, because once we lift the NDA, people can actually see the game. They can have all the footage and all the information they want, so we can change the the policy. Because as I poured through last month, so the months before refunds, and as usual, the vast majority of them were people who pledged, within 30, days. I want to make sure that these people have all the information they need before they pledge. I don't think that all of them certainly were just, hey, I'm throwing down some money because I know Mark is going to give it back to us. I think a lot of times they, absolutely had different expectations, and I want to make sure they have the right expectations. So once we can lift the NDA and we put up the videos, then people can see, and then they can decide. Second, it's certainly to actually show, especially as we get closer to launch, the cool things that we can do and you can do as players in the game. I want to attract people who want to play Camelot Unchained, not some other game. And that's not a reference to Dark Age. It's just a reference to we're looking for people who want to play the game we're making. Will that hurt us at times? Absolutely, of course. It's why so many companies, either historically, have put out blur-based trailers for their games to make it, oh my God, this is the best game ever. And then, you see the game and it's like, well, this doesn't look anything like the trailer. It doesn't play anything like the trailer. So, we certainly don't want to be in that position. The other reason, again, not only because we want to attract more people by, frankly, just seeing what they can already do, but we also do want to attract people who see not the possibility, but the future based on the present. And yes, if we lose some people, we lose some people. The nice thing is we're not, got to be careful how I say this, because I don't like throwing other studios under the bus, especially when we are late too. But we're not looking with our funding to get people to contribute to something that may come out sometime in the next decade. We really want to get people, in who can expect a reasonable, timeline for development. We never wanted, to take this long on making the game, obviously, and we've never resorted to selling other things. So, our goal really is not, to make this the never-ending, Kickstarter donation plan. So, by hopefully early next year, the NDA will be lifted, streaming will start, and people can judge for themselves if they want to be part of really cool sieges, if they want large-scale battles, and if they just want to enjoy a game that's very different from anything else out there.
O Bumble asks, when will we see orders in the beta?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. I don't know how much longer it'll be. That has not come up in any discussion I've had for the last few weeks. Sorry. So I don't know the answer.
Medic asks, will races such as Banshee, Ketchi, and Dverger be added during Beta 1?
Depending on the length of Beta 1, yes, that is definitely something I want to see in Beta 1. Especially the whole taking the head off thing. That'd be so cool.
The Man With No Screen Name asks, if there were mythologies and creatures therein you would like to include in CU, if you have the time to do so, what would they be and why?
Well, there'd be a lot I'd like to include, but don't really fit the kind of game we're making. As you know, and anyone who's followed my games for a long time know, I love mythologies, all mythology. And in, if you think about all the cool ones out there, I'd like to find a way of sneaking them all in, or things from all of them in, but I can't, because that would be, I don't want to say would be, breaking immersion, but it certainly would make the game feel less like Camelot Unchained and more like some of the MMOs where, they'll just take from anything in order to put it in their game. So, the answer is there's not a single one right now, simply because I think it wouldn't be the right thing to do for the players.
Svarty asks, what is the thought about the style of armor and weapons? what is the ideal size for you when it comes to swords and shoulder pads in CU?
Sure. Generally smaller, obviously, than WoW or Asian. A lot of the Asian MMOs, much smaller than a lot of the Asian MMOs. It's a question of balancing realism and cool looking, and there isn't any size in my head that's right. This is something we're going to keep experimenting with until we get it, get something that feels good. We know on one hand we're not going hyper realistic, where you can say yes, the sword in this game is the exact same length relative to your character that it would be in real life. On the other hand, we're not going full Asian on it, where the swords are so big, so heavy that nobody could possibly lift them, even with enhanced abilities.
Tavermod asks, I intend to play a crafter as my main. Will there be any obstacles to my running another character to get the materials back home with another character?
No, you can certainly do that. The game is designed so that the crafting system, is being designed so it is not something that you have to be there 24/7 for or 12/7 for, even. So yes, you can absolutely run another character. We've said that from the beginning. You can't run if you're thinking that, or some people think, oh, can I just run a full load of crafters? The answer is no. You won't be able to do that. That won't be the most time efficient way of doing things. But can you have a crafter and an alt? Yeah, absolutely. 5 minutes, folks.
Okay, the 5-minute warning. Shall I repeat Odilvik's
Nope,
question?
I got it. I'm still mulling it in the back of my mind. There's so many things that are good. I just want to. I don't know what's awesome yet.
Druge says, "How about a Roman game? A Roman-based game that takes place in the future? That would be cool."
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? Imperator. We were actually discussing that a little bit over lunch today.
Hellweir asks, Mark, regarding expectations of backers, do you think you ought to more thoroughly answer some of the controversial and contentious issues of design disputed among backers, so we all have a more clear understanding of direction of the game rather than left to different interpretations?
I don't think that there's anything of that scope on the forums. There's a lot of things that impact how you play the game, things like stick and follow and face. But in terms of the major questions that it would be so controversial that it would eliminate or discourage people who've backed, honestly, and I'm not trying to be evasive here, I don't know of a single one that either we haven't answered or said that, hey, we can't answer that yet because we're still trying to figure some things out. Now, are there a lot of questions? Absolutely. And no matter what I answer, you folks will come up with more. And I've always said when asked something like this is that, what's important to some people and is an absolute deal breaker, to others, and then other people that just don't care. So, there's no way for a developer to answer all of those questions during development with a game as complex as CU. And frankly, even if I tried, I would end up spending my entire week answering and getting involved in that kind of feedback and give and take. So, look, again, I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm not trying in any way to minimize what some people think is super important or is super important. But honestly, once you go down that path, or once I go down that path, I might as well give up being, designer and president here, because I won't have any time, because I will be drawn into debate after debate after debate. We've been very clear with the foundational principles about the things that we think are so important. We haven't changed a single one. We're still, sticking to everything that we've said from the beginning. Even when it came to the body part system changes, proposed changes, that wasn't a foundational principle thing. And even that, we told you guys, hey, this is something to think about. And I've been saying for months that if there was something to be cut, that would probably be the first thing to be cut or to be changed. So we're sticking, right to, well, frankly, to everything we've said from the beginning. So honestly, I am not, again, let me be very clear, I am not attempting to minimize the importance of some issues to people. I know it's important. Some things are important. But I also know that there are things that people who say, oh my God, this is so important to me, that if I answer any of them, I will soon have to answer all of them. And so, look, I know that's not a great answer, but I think it's the most honest one I could possibly give, because it's the same thing I've been saying from the beginning. It is not, my job to be drawn into every debate on the forums about things, especially about things, that I've said I don't want to discuss now. And since anyone, any single person who pledged for this game can get a refund today, if the fact that we haven't talked about it dissuades them, or they feel somehow cheated, well, it's easy. Just ask, and we give them. So we're not trying to evade discussion. We're just trying to avoid it for now, because the amount of time that would be spent if I was drawn into those discussions on a continual basis. And the same for Ben. I mean, do you guys want us to make the game, or to answer every question on the forums? Because even if it's your question you're referring to, and even if you're absolutely right that is a crucial question for everybody else, the fact is, once you go down that path, then we will have question after question after question about not only the big issues, but smaller issues, and more smaller issues, and very individualized issues. And if I don't keep answering them, then, as you folks especially who've been on any forums for a while know, then all of a sudden it'll be MJ doesn't care. Why doesn't MJ want to answer my question? Ben hates me because Ben never answers my questions. And we're not going to do that. So, unfortunately, that question turned into a very long answer, so that's going to be the last one. But let me think about Odalvix a little bit more. I think I have an answer. It's not the greatest, but it is something that I brought up before that, though actually it wasn't in the other games yet, so that's not a feature. Sorry, let me take back that. I don't have an answer. What other feature would I have killed to invent? And I know I've said that before. I'm trying to remember. What the hell did I say that about? Oh man. And it was something with Dark Age as well that I said, oh, I would have changed the design if I had thought of that at the time. And it wasn't horses, because I did want horses. Damn it. Oh, boy. This is, like I said, this is a good one. All right, so let me default and go to think about something else that I saw that I really, really wanted. I wished it had been in either, anything I wanted was in, I think everything I really wanted was in Warhammer, minus a really good crafting system, but that's a whole other story. I don't want to punt on this because I love the question.
People are throwing things out like spaceships.
Yeah, I know. and I've been throwing some weird things out of my head. I'm trying to remember the game that it was attached to, because there are so many things I would have added, but I want to make sure it was from a game I would have stolen the idea from. Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't remember. I think I know one of the things that I wished that we had stolen, for example, was the use of Lua, for modding. I had wanted that, but for reasons, it was vetoed. But I had wanted that. What else did I really want?
Drew says turrets.
Yeah, no, that wasn't it. I'm trying to think of, again, what was in other games prior to Dark Age that I wish we had taken, or things that had come up soon after that we should have put into Dark Age. And I think there was something in WoW that I really wanted, and I wish I had thought of, and I just can't remember it right now. And I will remember it, I am sure, as soon as we finish this. But sorry, great question, really good question. And I know there is something that I wish I had thought of. Specifically, I know for Dark Age, but sorry, man. So look, long question aside. All right, one great question since I fumbled this one, and the last one turned into a really long one. So let's go for a great question.
All right, we're looking for a nice question to end with, folks.
And I'm also avoiding going back to work on spreadsheets. So,
Drew says, was it buddy levels?
No.
Shoulder pads? Daily quests?
No. Not buddy levels. Was it? No, it wasn't mentoring. Maybe no, because those were in MUDs. So it wasn't that.
Let's see. Strike really wants to know what is in the spreadsheets you are working on.
Oh, just there are sometimes one of the least enjoyable things that I have to work on are business development / stuff for investors. That's what I'm working on. It is of all the spreadsheets, I don't want to say I detest working on, but of all the spreadsheets I don't enjoy working on, it's those kind of spreadsheets. It's the same kind of spreadsheets I had to do for the investment back last year. Same things I used to have to do at EA. Though back then I had the wonderful and talented Tanya Dunham, for most of my time there, doing things that made my life easier, and that because she's not here full time, I have to do all this myself. So yeah, that's all. I wish I could say it was super exciting and wonderful and fun. Like I do enjoy doing those kind of spreadsheets with crafting, but this one is just painful because it involves so many different worksheets and everything is tied together, and you change one thing, it could mess up something on 12 sheets down. So yeah, not exciting, but part of the job. Got a good question, please?
I'm trying to find one that's like a good one to end with. Not
okay.
Like, when do we get X? Let's see. Druge asks, and I don't think anyone's asked this question in this way before.
Oh, good. I like those.
But I could be wrong. Druge asks, if you had one extra full day to work in a week that didn't make the week longer, what would you spend it doing for CU?
Oh, that's interesting. So, does he mean me or the whole company?
Druge said you. So, Druge, is that a plural you? Or do you mean Mark specifically? Gonna wait for the delay.
Yeah. That's a really good question, too. And I will answer that one. I just want to answer it the right way.
Druge says, I meant just MJ, but he can answer as he wishes.
No, I'll do it. Me is fine. If I had a day that wouldn't impact anything else, what would I love to be working on? I know what it is, but I have to think about whether I've talked about this in the past. Yes, I have. Okay, so I'm definitely good with that. So the answer is siege weapons. And not just basic siege weapons. I mean going full bore with all different kinds of, not just what you might expect. And this ties into the earlier question about magical mechanical. Yeah, I wish I had time just to do that and let the mind wander and go to crazy town, even if we didn't end up putting them in the game, because it would be a day that wouldn't count essentially. So I wouldn't mind doing that, because I think siege weapons and everything that's tied into a siege, that's one of the things that we want to do in a rather cool way here, and I know I have talked about that before. And so I would love the time just to really let my mind wander, and do even more research than I've done to think about some crazy possibilities, even if we couldn't actually do it because of tech. Because I do think we need to do more than just standard siege, battering rams, catapults, trebuchets, etc. So I would like that time, now, frankly, because we're getting close to that time for CU, where we have to have the sieges working and have destructible buildings working. And so right now I'd love an extra day or two, just to think and take the documents from where they are now to, or document to the next level and beyond. But yeah, no time this week. It's been one of those weeks where I have really had very little time to work on anything fun. On the other hand, I've spent a lot of the time in interviews, which is great, with logistics on things relating to interviews, which is also good, and biz development stuff, which is just biz development stuff. So yeah, good question to end on. Thank you, and Max, yeah, you picked a good one. Having said that, folks, thank you as always for your patience. Thanks for the support. We've got a whole bunch of things that I've been saying for the last couple weeks are coming in, and they are coming in, and they are coming in hot. That's for sure. So it's going to be very interesting over the next couple weeks for us here on the technical end of things, how all these systems integrate, and what happens when they do. And great times for you guys as well, because we, once we are past coherent, once we are past 64-bit, not only do, as George talked about, do things change fairly quickly, but what has been a major roadblock, for us in terms of what we could do on the client, is now removed, or will be removed. And that is a really big deal. I mean, that, I don't want to try to oversell it. As you folks know, I've been very good about that. No sunglasses, no hype, but it's a really big deal. And so we are very excited about that, as a team, because we really, so many of the guys have been roadblocked. I know as a designer, and I know Ben as well, we've had limitations there. Same with the ability system. So we've got a lot of things really coming in that will get us to where we want to be. And yay. So, yeah, hopefully next week we'll have some of that in testing. And I'll see you hopefully in the game, maybe next weekend, and certainly during the week as we test things and watch the fun and frolic as they go in. So look, have a good weekend, everyone. Stay safe. It's certainly not been a good few weeks for the world, and especially here in the U.S. So be safe, have fun, and hopefully I'll see you all next week.
We'll see you later. We'll see you later.